The following is brought to you by VerticalVet. Rethink your GPO.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ernie Ward, Executive Director of Education for VerticalVet, and I'd like to welcome you to this special webinar on diversity in the veterinary profession. It's a topic that we've been talking a lot more about lately, but maybe we haven't been talking to the right people. So today, I'm super excited to be joined by two people whose perspectives, experiences, and solutions are really what we need to hear today. So first off, we have Megan Sturgill. She is a registered veterinary technician. She serves as the Director of Member Resources for VerticalVet, and she's going to tell us her story and some of the issues that she's encountered and how we can avoid them. And of course, we have Walter Brown, another RVT, who's in academia, and he's going to share his story and what we can learn from him. So I'd like to start off with the most obvious issue surrounding diversity in our profession, and that is that 93%, estimates by the government say 93% of veterinary professionals look an awful lot like me. They are white, they are Caucasian, So I'd like to start off by talking to you, Walter, about the most obvious need in our profession, and that is to bring people of color.
Right. Very interesting topic. And one of the things that I think a lot of people they don't have a lot of information on, or they just didn't think of it. But yes, you were correct. 93% of the veterinary professionals are white, male, or female. And, with the 3%, actually, the last study stated that 3% of the African-American population are in the veterinary field, even with the historical black college, Tuskegee, which is primarily your only historical black college, which has a veterinary school. Even there, a lot of the minorities, such as Hispanics, actually outnumber the black community. So, again, it kind of drives down the numbers. But definitely is a need for more of the African-American presence in veterinary medicine. Me growing up, loving animals and loving this field, I never saw anyone that looked like me, and that was a challenging thing until I got older and realized that there are people, but they are far in between and few. So I think it is a thing that we kind of find solutions to put this information out to the African-American community, because there are a lot of things that actually comes with having someone that looks like you in the veterinary medicine space.
And Megan, it's easy to see the need for diversity in terms of color in our profession, but there might be some other areas that are being underserved and perhaps even underemphasized. So maybe speak to some of the things we don't often see, but we need to address as a profession in terms of diversity.
Yeah, absolutely, Dr. Ward. So, just looking at me, right, I am white, I'm female, I kind of fit your normal standard of veterinary medicine right now in the decade that we find ourselves in. What you guys don't know by looking at me is that I fall into a diversity group, right? I identify as a lesbian woman. I'm part of the LGBTQ plus community. And that has been something that has come up in struggles within veterinary medicine. I think vet med is so ahead of the game in so many different areas, but there's some more growth that needs to be happening right now, especially given, LGBTQ individuals have a higher likelihood of suicide, and then adding on the compassion fatigue that we know exists in vet med is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, and I think that brings out a really important point and something I want to discuss, and that is, okay, we get it. You guys face challenges. We need to do better diversification, but you guys are carrying some burdens, right? I mean, there's a lot of hidden tension and frustration. You encounter adversity in the workplace. I mean, Megan, sort of talk about that, because I think you're right. We look at you and we go, well, you kind of look like me, right? I mean, Walter, you look different, obviously, but my point is, you're maybe carrying some hidden pain and stress. And I guess what I'm trying to ask is, what is it real? I mean, do you face these types of challenges? And number two, what can we do to help be your ally?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have faced challenges in vet med being a lesbian. I can't tell you how many times I've had in conversations where, my wife's, whose name is Tiffany, suddenly becomes my husband, whose name is Tim. In vet med, one of the things that makes us so special, what makes a technician so special, is the connection that we create with our clients in the exam room. And that connection starts when you start figuring out what kind of questions to ask these clients to open up. how their grandchildren are doing. We all have notes in our computers that, maybe a client's daughter just got married, and we bring that up the next time we see them. It builds that trust that we want to see in our practices. And with that comes questions that come to the technician, how your life is doing, what you're finding. And it's been in those types of situations that I have struggled with my identity of being a lesbian woman. I remember so vividly an experience where, chatting with a client in the room, and she had asked me about, if I was married, and I said I was, and she asked me about my husband, and I felt in that moment that I didn't want to hide that time. So I said, actually I'm married to a woman, and this is what she does. And that client told me that she no longer wanted me to be her technician for that appointment because she was afraid that her dog would get gayness off of me.
Wow.
And that, I left the room and I got a colleague to go in and take care of that client. And I didn't tell my practice owner at the time or any of my colleagues at the time, because there was this sense of shame that came with it that I felt, and I shouldn't feel that way. It came out, and I was just so angry in that moment. And I've worked with great practices that have supported me 100%, but sometimes those experiences that you have, they weigh on you.
Wow. And so again, Walter, we can't see, LBGTQ. We can't even it's hard for us to understand exactly, sort of where Megan's coming from. But you, on the other hand, you can't hide your skin color. Have you encountered challenges either in your workplace or in the exam room? And have you had these, just like Megan has said, a client said, I don't want you to treat my dog?
Totally. On the end with Megan, for someone to come out and say it's, that's one entity of it, but they typically don't say it to me. It's the expression, it's the body language that you see, and you're conscientious as an African American in this field. When I go out and get a client's dog, I can always see it on their face, like, whoa,
right.
I wasn't expecting you. And, I actually, make sure, which I feel like I shouldn't have to do, but I try to take the measures to make sure that I don't put off a persona that for some reason, puts off a vibe to the owner that they, some uncertainty of me being the caretaker of their dog. So a lot of the times, I wear earrings, I wear jewelry or whatnot. I will literally tuck my necklace into my shirt. Sometimes I'll take my earrings off or whatnot, because I don't want to be perceived as someone who can't be, someone that take care of your pet. So we definitely see these things. And I think the biggest thing is we bottle this anxiety up, and we bottle these things up, and people don't understand that we take these things home with us, and it does impact us and it does affect us. But again, it goes back to educating, the community that, there are other people other than the 93% of people that represent the veterinary community that looks like me.
Right. And if we're going to grow our profession, guys, if you look like me and you own or manage a practice, we're going to have to reach more of America. So Megan, let's also dig into this, what he said, like, you probably feel like you have to be held to a higher standard, right? I mean, you have this sense that, okay, wow, if I'm going to be judged for my sexual orientation, I better be twice as good. I mean, does that factor into like your daily work life in the exam room, in the practice?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Walter can agree with me on this one. Yeah, I feel that I have to be a spokesperson sometimes, and that because of that, my work ethic is going to be nonstop. And it's not the only factor that drives my work ethic, but you kind of feel like you have this weight on your shoulders that any mistake that you make as a technician, as a professional in this, environment, that it's on your shoulders, really. So it is a lot of added stress.
And Walter, that stress adds to burnout, compassion fatigue. It probably is a barrier for some to even enter the profession. I mean, what have your experiences been about this holding yourself to a higher standard? Do you hear students talk about, this feeling like they're inadequate or not worthy?
Oh, totally. Again, one of the biggest things that I think I have put myself in a position to succeed with is, and again, I hate to, some people say, Walter, you shouldn't feel that way. But I think this is what got me through the veterinary profession as a whole, is like, I look at the person next to me and I see where they are in this career, and I want to be at least 2 steps above them, because I feel I have to be 2 steps ahead in order to be considered an equal in the veterinary space. And, a lot of students come to me and we we talk about these things and whatnot, and they're like, I just don't understand why I have to do much more. And unfortunately, like, that's what we've been, that's the reality of it. And that's what we have grown up to consider, that, you have to be just a little bit better in order to be equal. And we shouldn't be that way in this space. But, if that's something that will get you to feel like you've succeeded or being successful, I definitely applaud the person that says, I'm going to go the extra mile so I can at least be better than that person, but on a level of equality.
That's a heavy burden to bear, guys. I mean, it's one thing. I mean, if your experience is like mine, and which is the majority of veterinarians by far, really, I was competing with other people. Like, I didn't think I had to outpace. I was like, well, hey, if I'm as equal to them, I'm good. But the reality is, for people in minorities, whether it's sexual orientation, race, whether it's religion, all those things are compounded and actually make it more challenging. And I would like, Megan, just to get your opinion real quick too. We do think largely in terms of diversity when it comes to, of course, race and sexual orientation. But there's another type of diversity that maybe our profession has been a little blind to, and that is around religion. I mean, we are primarily a Judeo-Christian country, but there's people from all walks of life that believe in all types of religions that, maybe sometimes we don't work with or encourage, and I'm speaking primarily to Muslim faith. I mean, there's been a lot of challenges that community has faced. I mean, have you seen that type of challenge in your experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. I had the privilege of working with a Sikh veterinarian, and that was, a very wonderful and talented veterinarian. But to see the expressions on people's faces that, they were just a little bit different, and it caught clients and employees off guard, if they were coming in for a working interview. So it's not just looking at LGBTQ. It's not just looking at what your race is. It's also really looking at religion. And what makes vet med so unique is that we can have everything. We can have such a diverse group of professionals in this space. There really is nothing that's stopping us except ourselves.
Yeah, and Walter, we complain, right? Our profession is really good at whining and saying, oh gosh, we need more people to come visit and spend more money on their pets. Right, we get that. But here's so we have to diversify, right? Because I will tell you, and you will know, of course, that people like to go where they feel welcomed, where they feel alike. I mean, there were studies done in the 60s that showed infant mortality in Black communities was significantly higher than in white communities, simply because Black mothers didn't feel comfortable going to a white pediatrician. So, Walter, here's the challenge. A lot of people say, okay, great, Ernie, we need to diversify and all this stuff. But guess what? They're not applying. Like, I would hire them. I would hire a lesbian or a gay person, whatever, right? I'd hire a Black person or a brown person or a Sikh, right? But they're not applying. How do we get them to apply? That's the first hurdle we have to overcome.
I mean, it goes all the way back to educating clients and educating the community. Again, and being able to see someone that looks like you in that space. So I often, the biggest thing is like academia world or whatnot, where I work, we ask that, you employ people of different cultures, of different diversities, employ these people so that they can see that someone will be able to see that, hey, there is someone that looks like me in that space. Also, we have to reach out to the community as far as in the schools at young ages, from high school, guidance counselors, Boys and Girls Club, summer camps and whatnot in these low income areas. So we have to just put that information out there and make it available so that they can see. Once they see these things, a lot of times they will start to ask and generate these questions that we can kind of come to a solution of how can we get them in this field now and retain them in this field. So I think it goes back to, again, educating the clients, starting at a younger age with the generations, adopting different clauses within the academia realm, as well as in the general practitioner and vet med space altogether. And, I challenge veterinarians to ask themselves, look around the room and say, hey, I need someone around here that doesn't look like me so they can be more appealing to our clients. Because again, like you said, clients, when they see someone of their ethnicity or their background or LBGTQ, they feel more comfortable talking about pet care or whatnot. So when you see someone in that space that looks like you, it makes it easier and makes a more comfortable conversation about different things in the vet field.
I totally agree. And Megan, I found this to be a practice booster. I mean, this is how you get more clients. So maybe speak to, ways that we could reach out. So maybe there's someone watching today, they're saying, okay, look, I kind of get this. I probably should be doing more. What are some of the things that you would advise if they wanted to reach, either it's a Black community or LBGTQ? What would you suggest that practice manager, that owner do today, or what can they do to try to connect with these communities and encourage them to apply and even use their services?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing that I would say is I want you guys to look at, and I'm talking to the audience here, I want you guys to look at your websites, right? I want you to see, does your website make it clear that you're a safe place for people that are a little bit different? Does your job posting that you've put on Indeed, does that really bring home the message that you are an all-inclusive employer, that you celebrate diversity, that you support LGBTQ, that you support the African American community? Because I will say from a personal standpoint, when I'm applying for a job, when I'm applying for a position, I do the homework. I look at the website. I look at the job posting. I look on social media to make sure that I'm not going to put myself in a position that's going to make me uncomfortable going in for that interview. And like you said with the clients as well, we have a diverse group of clients that your practice is going to be treating their pets, right? And you may be in a rural area, you may be in an urban area, but the bottom line is you have a wide variety of clients. One of the ways that you can grow your client base, we're always looking at growing our clients. I know right now things are a little crazy and you guys might not want to hear that, but we're always looking to grow our clients. So I urge you guys to put your practice in magazines that are designed to go to a different type of population. Have a posting that you are a safe veterinarian in the LGBT community by going on, in every community, there's usually some sort of website that posts very safe stores and educational programs and veterinarians and hospitals that are accepting of your community. So I urge you guys to look into those areas to find a new way to promote your practice.
Yeah, and I love that. And Walter, one of the things that we did personally, in our practices was we went to schools that were primarily, African American. I'll say it. There's still a lot of segregation in our country, and I live in the South. So we would go there and do our, vet talks to elementary schools, and I found that served two purposes. Number one, like you said, it exposed young children, impressionable minds, to what veterinary medicine was all about, right? And I knew that I didn't look like them, but at least I could be a friendly face and not someone that they should fear. The second thing is it started to activate a network of parents, right? Because they heard that, oh, Dr. Ward came to our school, right? And, so suddenly now, as Megan said, it felt safer. And again, I'm not a Black veterinarian, but it was the best I could do to be an ally. So let's take this one step further. How do we get a new generation of veterinary technicians and veterinarians of color, of diversity, to come into our profession in the first place?
That's an awesome question. The biggest step that I'm taking in there, again, we are all trying to generate solutions to kind of get this thing, more into the veterinary space. The one solution that I came up with, and I called some friends the other day, is my high school, fortunately went to a charter school. And with charter schools, a lot of people don't understand that they focus on a lot of skill sets, right? So that these kids can at least have something to utilize once they're out of high school in these low income areas, if they don't have the privilege to go into a 4-year college, or if they just have enough to go to a 2-year college, they have these skills in order to excel there. So my thoughts were to at least establish a veterinary assistant program within these charter schools. So they will, at least that's a roadmap to getting to the veterinary medicine field, of whether you want to be a veterinary technician on the license side, or go a little bit further and go to veterinary vet school. Also, I would advise, the audience who may be watching, teachers or educators in the high school, junior high, middle school, when you have career days or whatnot, reach out to these veterinary technicians and Black veterinarians. So when they go to career day and they talk to different career options, that they see someone, again, that looks like them in the veterinary space, to actually say, hey, I didn't know I could be that person. So you increase the opportunity of someone that looks like you to get in field that is unrepresented by people that look like you.
And, Megan, again, just not only, practice ownership and entrepreneurship and getting into politics, I learned very quickly that I knew that I couldn't be a black person. I couldn't be a gay man, right? But I could be an ally. And so I think that sometimes a barrier for many white people is just, well, they don't feel comfortable. But don't you welcome, or I'm asking, I guess, do you welcome people like me if we want to come to an event, to, like you said, to post? I mean, let's assume that the intent is pure and true and genuine. But you know what I'm saying? I've always felt so welcome, no matter if it was at a primarily, African-American school or, at a LBGTQ rally. I mean, help me out here. Help me tell other white people that it's okay to support and help.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. My sexuality is private, but it's something that spills over into my career. That's where this conversation is going, right? I urge the conversations to happen. If you have questions about what it means to be a lesbian LGBTQ individual, you can ask me if we have that relationship. One area that I'm not comfortable with is, it's not a stranger's right to out me to somebody else, right? That's my personal decision. But I urge those conversations to happen. I think right now we're so scared as a community as a whole to say the wrong thing or ask the wrong question. But if you're coming from a place of love and you're coming from a place of truth, and that you truly do want to support me and people like me, and you want to support Walter and these, being an ally to diversify your practice, have these conversations. Hey, Walter, how can I better support you and what your mission is? Hey, Megan, what can I do right now to really make sure that my clients who might be LGBTQ feel comfortable coming into the practice? Let's have those open conversations. Just like we do, in the surgery suite when it's your technician and your DVM and you're in there talking about what's going on. That's a great opportunity to say, let's talk right now. Let's figure this out. Let's see what we can do to make our practice that much better.
Yeah. And, Walter, I always like to tell, my friends, I'm so thankful that the NAACP lets me and my wife be members, right? So you can support them with your money. And, and like our local chapter says, look, the fact that you're on our roll books, right? The fact that we have 30% in our area, 30% of the NAACP membership are white, like me. That signals to the community that, hey, we want to make it better for you. So let's talk about making it better for Black veterinary professionals. So what are some of the things that people like me should be doing to be your ally, your advocate? What can we be doing today to help improve relations and maybe encourage people to come into the profession?
I think Megan nailed it. Having that conversation and asking, hey, what can I do to get more people like yourself in this field? And again, it starts with a general conversation. A lot of the things also, I think we have to look a little bit further. And for those that are in academia, of course, that's the realm that I've ruled for so many years, is that, there are a lot of policies in place they're old policies that are actually inclusive versus being exclusive versus being inclusive. And I think we have to look at those policies and reevaluate them and say, hey, are they lining up with what we are looking for today, right? One of the biggest things that's a controversy right now is the GRE scores, right? GRE is one of the biggest things that they're like, let's take this barrier down because it's not giving us any information on whether that person is the candidate for vet school or not. And unfortunately, a lot of people have a hard time with the GRE in the Black community. It's just one of those statistics things that we are trying to improve in the Black community, getting the GRE scores up because they weigh heavily on what you would do with your professional life. But I applaud the different vet schools and the veterinary profession that are saying, hey, let's look at this GRE thing. And is it actually a barrier to, the culture? So I applaud people who are looking at these different things. And, again, I ask people to kind of have conversation with people. There's this thing called double imposter syndrome that I have definitely witnessed and talked to different vet students about. And they feel when they don't see people like themselves in the veterinary space, they feel alone. And as well as they feel like, am I good enough to be here? Right. So a lot of vet students are feeling, hey, am I good enough to be here? But then you have that double negative of I am Black and no one's around me that looks like me. it's a double imposter syndrome. So have conversation with those students and ask, hey, how can I be of a service to you? And as you said, Dr. Ward, an ally to what your accomplishment or what your goals are. How can we get you to that space? And again, it starts with a conversation, as Megan said.
Yeah, and it's really interesting and important for, I believe, again, white people, majority of people in our profession, to understand that when people like Walter are saying, look, there's some bias in a test, a lot of people instantly go, no, that's ridiculous. It's math. 2 + 2, how's that racially biased? It's not 2 + 2. It's sometimes the word problems. It's the context, right? Because if our perspective, if we were used to riding a little red wagon, that makes a lot of sense in solving a problem. But yet, if you never had a little red wagon, if you never had a neighborhood that was safe to ride around in, suddenly now these questions pose an additional barrier of comprehension. So I would say that bias in testing is real. You probably need to educate yourself if you don't believe that. And obviously, I know it's controversial, but the reality is, we have to say our perspective is different. So Megan, I can never relate. I can't truly, I can empathize, but I can't really understand how tough and challenging it must be to go day in and day out, wonder if a client's going to say, hey, I don't want you spreading your gayness to my dog, as you said in that story that's just tragic. These are burdens that I believe is my responsibility as the majority in our profession to help absolve and improve. Now, that leads me to kind of the last part of today's conversation, and I really want to get back to some of those solutions. So, Megan, if we're looking at our profession at large, okay, so RVT school, vet school, let's focus there. What are the things, because I'll be honest with you, a lot of the people that were LBGTQ in my veterinary class, they didn't let it be known, right? And now I came out, 30 years ago, so it's a different time, but I think it's similar today. I think that it's safer today, and that's great, and that's progress. But what are some of the things that we can do even within the school, the educational system? Because again, if we can address the educational system, that attracts people into it. What are some of the things you think we could do specific to the LBGTQ to help?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things that can be a success is showing that you are supportive of the community. And when I say show, I mean really show yourself. Having a school be a part of a pride celebration, having a school donate something to, whether that's funds or whatnot, to Pride VMC, which, supports vet med individuals that are LGBTQ+. So showing that and then being proud to have done that action is also really important. I think that's how we can really support our community, or especially the LGBTQ+ community.
Yeah, and I'll say once again, honestly, we need to give better emotional support, counseling to students in veterinary school and vet tech school, because again, as we've said over and over, and Megan and Walter have both shared, these are personal turmoils. And so we need to give them support structures in school so that they can then be equipped when they enter the real world. And then somebody comes out to, when Walter sees them and they're like, whoa, are you supposed to be getting my dog? Right. So Walter, let's get back now to the vet school, vet tech school for Blacks, because this is the challenge, right? We have one predominantly Black school in the country, Tuskegee. It's a fantastic school, my home state of Alabama. But, what can we do? Why aren't there 15 Tuskegees around the country?
That is a very, very good question, Dr. Ward. And I think those are questions that we are asking, that we are trying to figure out, how do we get these solutions again? And that's interesting. And like you said, there is one historical Black college that is doing veterinary medicine. And now that I'm thinking about it, there is only one historical Black veterinary technology school, and that's Fort Valley State University in the entire country. So you have one historical Black veterinary technology school for nurses, and you have one for DVMs. And again, that's why your 3% is what it is. Yeah. And even in those programs, they definitely offer scholarships to people that are not African American. So again, we have a lot of whites and people in the program that have been flushed out. The Blacks are being flushed out of their own program, so to speak, because we are giving, scholarships, because the whites are becoming the minority at these schools, and they get these scholarships and grants and whatnot. So again, I think what we have to do is, again, focus on the community, whether it be low income communities, whether it's webinars, high schools in low income areas. I have a friend that actually invites me out and my uncle, who is a veterinarian, they invite us out to their low-income housing authority area, and she throws basically a pet day where they have like a pet show. You dress your dog up all cute or whatnot. But we also make sure we do a vaccine clinic that day, as well as a rabies clinic that day as well, and give out some products and just educating the community on, like, you know, the things that matter, like, for instance, HeartGard and heartworm disease, which runs prevalent here in Georgia. So again, we just take those small steps and we ask people to kind of generate solutions to, you know, help the people that look like me in these different communities.
Yeah, years ago, I remember seeing some market data from a pharma company, and this is, 20 years ago. And basically, Walter and Megan, it looked like this. It was like, hey, when we poll Black communities and Latino communities, they had a high degree of interest in veterinary services and products, right?
Mm-hmm.
So hey, whoa. But here was the issue. They didn't know about it. Like, they didn't understand that there was a heartworm that could kill their dog. They just knew their dog died at 4 years of age, right? They didn't understand that immunizations could prevent parvo and distemper. So we knew that there was an educational block somewhere, right? And I think it's primarily because our messages have been focused on channels that directly impact and come into the homes of white America. So I would say to you, again, if you're out there, like Megan said earlier, there are publications, there are websites, there are YouTube channels that you could probably help support and get your message out as well. I do want to bring up one other thing, though, too, Walter, as we're talking about schools and sort of wrapping up today's discussion. And that is cost of tuition. I mean, cost is a significant barrier for anybody. I know a lot of, white people are sitting here going, well, yeah, it's expensive to go to vet school, but it's access to loans. It's access to being able to travel to the Caribbean, for example. It's access to private schools, because what you've seen is that in these newly minted veterinary colleges, Walter, it's almost all white. Okay?
It is.
And so are we at risk of becoming a profession of elitists, as I've said for the last 25 years, because cost becomes a barrier, right? Because if you're a talented Black American, you're going, okay, if I can get into vet school, it's going to cost me $200,000, $300,000. Or if I'm good enough to get into vet school, I can probably go to med school, make 5 times the amount of money, probably get my debt relieved. I mean, dude, we lose all day long. So what can we do to help eliminate or reduce the cost barrier?
I think, again, scholarships, grants, these philanthropists that are in veterinary medicine, right? Who, again, corporate is buying out so many of our veterinary fields, right? This is a good time for corporate to say, let me invest in the African-American community too. They have these funds. I ask people, like, different services like Antec, or the just different, like, large company, IDEX or whatnot, to encourage the community, the African American community. Hey, vet school is a great place to go. What can we do to support this? Again, grants, scholarships, and like you said, having these conversations of having more historical Black colleges with these veterinary technology programs, and I think is an absolute win. So again, I think having that conversation with people like yourself or people who just like, we had no idea, again, generating that conversation and say, what could we do next to make sure we get people in the space like you? I think that goes a long way.
So Megan, today, just again, as we wrap up, so let's say an employer has an LBGTQ person on their team. What are some of the things that you like to see them do to make sure that that person is receiving the support and nourishment that they need from everybody else? Like, I mean, how can they be your best buddy and ally within that team?
Yeah, I think it goes to just simple conversations, checking in to seeing if we all are so close in our practices, right? You know what your coworker ate for dinner the night before. You just know those things. And so asking those questions, hey, how is your partner doing? What do they do again for work? It's getting onto that personal level, because when you start there, you're going to be able to build that relationship. I also think it's important to have a section in your PIMS, in your computer software at the practice, where you can enter notes about your clients. So if you have a client that may be transitioning, or if you have a client that is gender fluid, that you can put those notes in so that you are addressing that client by how they want to be addressed, and that you're acknowledging that they are a unique person, and you are so proud to serve their pet. And so it's utilizing those tools that you already have in your practice to be able to support those clients and employees.
Yeah, and I would say in this day and age, it's incumbent upon every business and practice to say, how would you like to be referred to? You know, I was recently talking to a veterinarian who was sort of adamantly opposed to that question. And, you know, and I'll tell you that that is not up with the times. And if I were you right now, I'd be looking at your client intake form, your, you know, and make sure when you register people that you ask them, you know, hey, how would you like for us to refer to you? Because you might be surprised, but more importantly, you can be more welcoming. And I think it's just human decency. So Walter, same question to you, you know, so let's say that I am fortunate enough to hire a person of color in my clinic. What are the things I can do to make sure that this is a success?
Have those conversations. You know, again, it's all about communication. We can go around this in circles and it comes back to communicating. The one thing that I find of a great relief with me and when I work with people that doesn't look like me is those that I have about 5 or 6 different surgeons and different doctors within the academia realm. When there are things that we see in the media, right? A lot of times we try to avoid the media. And the one thing that I like about veterinary medicine is that we are diverse. We are, you know, we need to be more diverse, but, you know, we have LGBTQ, we have Hispanics, we have Asians, we have a lot of nationalities within our space, which makes us more of a family, right? And we can escape the world's problems. But a lot of times the world problems leak over into veterinary medicine, right? So when these things leak over into veterinary medicine, right now the biggest thing is Black Lives Matter and injustice of what's going on. There are people, when there are people that these things are affecting, let them know when you don't look like them that, hey, I know what's going on in the world. If there's any time you want to talk about these things, you let me know. I'm here with full support, and I want to let you know what's going on is not right. Even though I may not have a solution or be able to put myself in your shoes, you know, I want to let you know that I'm here for you. So I think that speaks volume. And you guys, you know, me as a Black African American male, letting you guys know that speaks volume, and it actually helps a lot. Just knowing that people are not turning a cold shoulder to the things that are going on in the world that may be affecting you, and you have to work with these people 40 hours a week. So again, having that conversation and letting them know that, hey, I'm here for you is big, is very impactful.
Yeah, that's so important. And I will tell you too, if you're a manager or owner, you can no longer hide behind the excuse of, well, it's not my business. I don't want to get involved. You know, hey, I'm not going to go there. They just do their job. Because as Walter just eloquently stated, it spills over. The real world is our clinics, right? These relationships are impactful and important, and they have meaning to people, right? So if we're not, if we ignore it, if we don't ask, don't tell. If we just say, I'm going to, Walter, your blackness is your thing. I don't want to hear about it. That's not helping, I don't believe. At all. In fact, I believe it could be harming. It forces people to, as Megan said earlier, just to hold this stuff deep inside until one day it does blow up. And when it blows up, you lose a great employee. And you got to ask yourself, is it ever worth that? I just don't think it is.
You nailed it, Dr. Ward. You nailed it. You nailed it.
Well, any closing thoughts? Megan, anything that you want to make sure that people that are watching this today sort of understand about your story and sort of what you have, hope for the future?
Yeah, I want to end this just for a minute saying that vet med is amazing. And I am so proud to be a part of this community, to be a part of this profession, because we are, as a community, leaps and bounds above a lot of other industries out there. And so I want to end today's call saying we're on the right track. We're on the right track. And with how much talent I know is in this profession, I know that in 10 years from now, we can really start seeing the change that needs to take place. In a year from now, we can start seeing that change. Let's not lose the momentum, though. I think so many times we have one success and we say, yes, we're doing it. And then that momentum slows down a little bit. Keep rocking, be an ally for your employees. Have our backs when it comes to maybe some terrible things that clients are saying. Support your staff member, because they're going to be the ones that are going to be able to build those relationships with your clients in the future.
Wow, I love that. Walter, same thing for you.
This is the part of it that almost makes you a little bit emotional. Again, I appreciate people like you, Dr. Ward. I appreciate people like Megan. Again, I just started my venture with the Skinny Go Live Vet Med Funnies deal, and I had no idea that it would impact so many people the way it has. To get so many messages of, dude, I literally wanted to jump off a bridge today until I went to your page, I watched one of your videos, and I feel so much better. to be an African American male in this space with so many people that don't look like you, to have people white people and different people that don't look like you, to reach out to you and say, dude, I appreciate what you're doing. It actually drives me every day in my heart. You know, I get emotional about it sometimes, because it's like I never expected people to appreciate me for what I do, just being who I am. I've struggled and tried to find what my talent was in life, to be accepted as a Black male or person in this field, and to know that the entire time, me just being a caring person and a good person that just like to have fun at work, to reach so many people that don't look like you and to be appreciated by people that don't look like you is something I never experienced in my life. And this speaks volume, and I appreciate you, Megan, and I appreciate you, Dr. Ward, and I appreciate everybody that just says, hey, Walter, keep doing what you're doing. Continue to make us laugh. You warm our hearts every day, and that's the biggest thing I think that, for me, speaks volume, and I appreciate you guys so much for it.
Well, Walter and Megan, I thank you so much. You guys keep doing what you're doing. You're bringing so much joy to the world, but more importantly, you're making positive change, and that's really all any of us can try to do and hope to do in our life, and both of you are doing that by sharing your stories, experiences, and solutions. I want to thank VerticalVet for, again, being bold enough to actually promote content like this, because this diversity conversation, it's easy to sugarcoat it and really not talk about the real challenges, but we need to dig down and say, this is an issue. The great thing too is we're a small profession. And so little changes in our world can have profound impact throughout it. So, it doesn't take much. It just takes us each making those small changes every day, taking a second look at your application sheet, postings in different areas, supporting different communities and networks. Those are the kind of things I believe they're going to make the biggest difference. And then, as Megan and Walter both said, we can't lose momentum, right? This is a moment in time, and there's a lot of good feeling around this issue. But guess what? It's been around since man came on this planet. So we still have a lot of work ahead of us. We're committed to doing it. Again, we want to hear from you out there. So VerticalVet, thank you so much. We'll continue this conversation online. Thank you, Walter. Thank you, Megan. And thank you for watching this today. So again, stay safe out there. Bye.